everyone, welcome back to the channel. So if you're new here, my name is Jodie. I tend to talk about personal finance, and today I'm going to be talking about what kind of documents you might need if it's your first time getting a mortgage. So I bought my flat here in London about a year and a half ago, so it's pretty fresh in my mind of everything you might need. So hopefully this is helpful if you're thinking of buying a property in the UK, or you've literally viewed some flats and you're curious about what to do next. So first things first, you will need a proof of identity if you want to get a mortgage. So what this will look like will be a passport or a driver's license. That tends to be the main ones that they look for. Now, if you have a double-barreled name like I do, make sure that the document has the correct spelling, and if there's a dash or a hyphen or anything like that, make sure it matches other documents that you need to have, such as utility bills and everything else. I know it sounds so simple, but if your name is slightly different on a bill or something like that, it can cause such a headache like it did for me. So that's just a really weird side note. If you have a driver's license and that's the proof of identity that you're going to be giving for your mortgage application, also really make sure that the address that's on the driver's license is not an old address and you don't live there anymore, because again, that can cause issues. So number two then should be pretty obvious from that. It's proof of address. So they will tend to ask for over the last 5 years where you've lived, and also proof of your current address. So usually that would be a utility bill is most likely, or maybe a council tax bill that has your name that matches your passport and also your current address as well. If you've moved around a lot in the 5 years, I think you do have to give all the information of previous addresses. I know I did anyway. It's a little bit trickier if you've moved around a lot, but if you've lived with parents, for example, for the last 5 years, or you've been renting in the same place, that's obviously easier, but it's not a black mark or anything like that if you have moved around a lot. It's just you have to give more information. So the third thing then is evidence of your income. So what they want to see is that you've got a full-time job. Most likely that would be most helpful when getting a mortgage. And if you were on a salary, they will ask for your gross annual salary. So this will be via pay slips. So when I did it, I had to give 4 months of pay slips, the most current months, that showed the income I was getting paid, and also if I had any student loans. Other forms of evidence of income is if you have any bonuses, or you're commission based, or you have overtime or anything like that. They will want to see proof of that, and also you just need to give that extra information, because if you get a big bonus, it does actually help you because it looks like you've got more money and the banks can trust you a bit more because you've got more income. So number 4 then is evidence of your deposit. So this will be if you have your deposit in a separate bank account, you will need to have a bank statement to show them basically, oh hey, I've got a 10% deposit saved up in this account, and they can see the number and perfect. If you are 2 people going into a mortgage and they're in separate bank accounts, maybe you've got half and your partner has half, you'll have to show bank statements for both of those so that it adds up to the deposit. If you don't have a deposit but you want to buy a house and maybe your parents or your family are helping you out with the deposit, this is kind of a funny one. So if your parents are giving you money as a gift, maybe they're giving you 20 grand, which is a 10% deposit of a 200k house. You do have to write a letter, they have to write a letter, to say that this is a gift and that, you know, it's going into your bank account, or if it's in their bank account, you kind of have to show that. So it's a little bit easier if you already have the money in your savings account. So maybe just have a bit of a think about that before you go down this path. So the 5th thing to think about is that the banks will do an affordability test. And what this usually is you will give all the examples of what you spend in a month, and they will also look at your bank statements. I had to provide bank statements for the last 4 months, and they basically tend to just kind of look through that to see, you know, is she gambling every week? Can she afford, you know, this amount of mortgage payment every month? Is she responsible with her money? That kind of thing. So really have a think about that, you know, on the lead up to doing your application. Is don't be spending wildly. That's maybe kind of not what you usually spend, but they will kind of look into that. Especially I've heard with like gambling, if you like buy lotto tickets or in the betting shop, that tends to be frowned upon because it kind of shows maybe she's not responsible with money. And also alongside this, obviously the lenders will do a credit check on you. So maybe have a bit of an idea about what your credit score is before you go down the road of the mortgage application. You can of course do credit checks. I've done a video on this, and it doesn't affect your credit score. You can go on to Experian, which is one of the examples, and it's free to do, and it just kind of gives you an indication of a score, with 999 being the best. So if you want to learn more about your credit score, I do have a video on this. So usually the better your credit score, the more likely that you will be passed to get a mortgage, and potentially at a better rate if you've got a really good credit score. If you've got poor credit, you might need to have a family member or someone else kind of sign on your behalf so that they will cover you if anything goes wrong. But hopefully, you know, that's not the case. Hopefully your credit is absolutely grand, or it's, you know, above average, and you'll be grand. The 6 things to think about before you start on your mortgage application is to understand any debts that you might have. If you've racked up a lot of personal, you know, credit card debts, things like that, maybe you've got a big car loan that's, you know, a debt in their eyes as well. Have a bit of a think about this and try to pay down as much as you can before you start on this process, because if you've got 20 grand in credit card debt, that is less likely to be favorable when the banks look at you, because the banks just want to understand, okay, can this person repay this mortgage for the next 30 years? Or, you know, do they have big pots of money elsewhere that they need to spend? Like they've got big credit card debts, loan debts, they spend a lot, they gamble, you know. So that's what the banks are trying to figure out with this application, which is fair enough. They're offering you money, usually 90% of the value of the house. So in the UK, it's usually about 10% deposit that you have to put down. So if, for example, there's a 200 grand house, which is very cheap in the UK, but let's say there's a 200 grand house that you viewed and you love it, and now you want to start in the mortgage process, you'll need to have that 10% deposit, which would be 20 grand. And then the remainder 180 grand is what the mortgage would be. And that's, they're trying to understand, can you afford this 180 mortgage? So a way they tend to do this is whatever your salary is, it's 4.5 times that. So for example, if you've got a salary of 50 grand every year, if you multiply that by 4.5, this is what you're eligible for. So in that case, you'd be over 200 grand of eligibility, and you want to buy a house and with a mortgage of 180k. So in that situation, you would be eligible and would be able to afford it, but obviously you need all the other documents too. So that's it, guys. Hopefully that was helpful. I'm a super new channel here, so I would appreciate a subscribe if you so desire. But otherwise, I tend to post 2 videos a week, mainly on personal finance and life bits. I'm Irish, of course, but I live in the UK here, so it's mainly from a UK perspective. And yeah, that's it. Any comments, drop below and I'd be happy to answer them. And best of luck on your mortgage journey. Okay, bye guys. Thanks.